Christmas is approaching and you don't want to watch Home Alone again? I got you. I hate the Christmas cliches. So I have a list of movies that I watch instead of all of that corny stuff. But let me preface this by saying that you've probably seen all of those movies like hundreds of times. And that's because I don't want to really like stray away from the Christmas nostalgia. I just don't want to watch the same lovey-dovey movie every year. So this first one is not going to be surprising to anyone because that's probably everyone's first thought when they think, oh, like a Christmas movie that isn't about Christmas. And it's obviously Harry Potter because it has that perfect nostalgia level for me personally, and I think it's Christmas themed. Like every movie has a Christmas scene, there are like gifts involved, and like the whole premise of all the movies is to focus on friendship and like the chosen family and the magic of all of that. So I think it's like a perfect movie to watch during Christmas. Also, like the soundtrack of those movies kind of gives Christmas vibes. I don't know, even like songs that aren't played during like the Christmas time in Hogwarts, they still have that Christmassy feel to them. I see a lot of people say that especially the first two movies have that like special Christmas vibe, and that's probably because they were directed by Christopher Columbus, who also directed Home Alone, so that might be why it kind of feels Christmassy. But in my opinion, all of the movies just work perfectly for Christmas because of the nostalgia, because of the magic. And I really like the fifth one, so Order of the Phoenix, because the Christmas scene there is very moving in my opinion, because that's after Arthur gets attacked at the ministry and Harry saves him, and all the Weasleys are like very thankful to Harry for saving their father. I really like that scene, and the whole bond that's building between Harry and Sirius is also very cute. Until the end, then we all get, devastated. Harry Potter is a cinematic equivalent of like a cup of hot chocolate and a blanket you've had since you were a kid. Like to me, this is the perfect Christmas movie because of the vibes, because of the storyline, because of the music, because of the actors, and it's always on my Christmas list. Now, the next two like series are a bit more controversial, and I know that a lot of people wouldn't consider them Christmas movies, but I always watch The Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit. I'm going to start with The Hobbit because Bilbo's story is like a lot less serious, so I think it might be better suited for Christmas for most people. In The Hobbit, I think friendships are very important, and this whole arc of like dwarves trying to get their home back, essentially, it has like very much a Christmassy feel to it because they're, like fighting for their home, they're like reconnecting with their roots, and it's all very epic and legendary, but at the same time, it has that like cozy, warm vibe about it. For me, Hobbit will forever stay a Christmas movie because when the movies were first coming out, they would always come out in December, I think. Maybe one of them came out in November, but me and my family would always watch it in the cinema, either like right before or right after Christmas. So to me, it's always going to have that Christmas vibe because of those memories. And I think it's a perfect Christmas movie because it has like a very heartwarming story, but at the same time, it's filled with action and magic and stunning views, and it's not like this same, corny stuff we all are used to watching. Lord of the Rings, on the other hand, is a lot more serious because everyone's life in Middle Earth is at stake here, but I think it has that Christmassy vibe for a couple of reasons. First of all, it reminds me of the Nativity, where like Jesus has three wise men coming to him to give him gifts, and in Lord of the Rings we have like 9 creatures going to Mordor to destroy an all-powerful ring, so it's like almost the same thing, but just like slightly different. On a more serious note though, Lord of the Rings has like that same type of nostalgia that Harry Potter does, at least to me. And I've just watched it so many times since I was a kid that anytime I turn it on, I just feel like a child again. And I feel like this is what Christmas is really all about, just being a kid at heart again. On top of that, Lord of the Rings is filled with friendship that overcomes difficulties, but it's nowhere near as corny as like your traditional Christmas movie. And honestly, that balance is why it works, because it has bravery, loyalty, hope, friendship, as well as action, magic, and thankfully, absolutely zero cheesy Hallmark dialogue. To stay in the fantasy genre, I would also recommend the Chronicles of Narnia, especially The Witch, the Lion, and the Wardrobe. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I don't know, maybe I should just list all the fantasy movies and call it a day. I guess that would work. But I love Narnia because, once again, it's that magical story of friendship and family, and it's obviously filled with the winter aesthetic. And it transports you, or me at least, to my childhood bedroom when I was lying in bed and rooting for a bunch of kids to save this whole magical world from the evil witch. A story filled with love, magical creatures, and the fight of good and evil is obviously a perfect watch for Christmas. And obviously the thought of that delicious Turkish delight. Kind of a side rant, but honestly, I've never had that. I don't know if it would even be that good, but in the movie, it just looks so delicious. But I decided I'm never going to have this because then I will be disappointed for sure, and it will ruin this movie for me. But beyond the nostalgia and the snowy vibes, Chronicles of Narnia have something that a lot of Christmas movies try to capture and very often fail, and that thing is wonder. That feeling of stepping into the world that's bigger than yourself and where impossible things are possible. There is something deeply magical about watching a bunch of kids discovering this extraordinary purpose. To get out of the fantasy genre a little bit, I also love rewatching Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, but not the new one with Timothée Chalamet, but the old one directed by Tim Burton. But I haven't watched the new one, so let me know in the comments if it's worth it. And Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, that does just feels like a Christmas movie that isn't like officially a Christmas movie. First of all, it's set in winter. Second of all, it revolves around a kid having his dreams come true. Charlie is poor and can only afford so much chocolate, so his chance of winning a ticket to the factory is relatively low. But by some miracle, perhaps a Christmas miracle, he manages to win and goes to the factory of his grandpa, who used to work there. The factory turns out to be a world of whimsy, every child's dream come true. And after all the other kids get eliminated, Charlie finds out he can actually inherit this factory, but instead he chooses to live with his poor family. Isn't that just so perfect for Christmas? Then Willy Wonka goes on a journey of reconnecting with his own father and healing this childhood trauma that he has, and it all ends with the perfect happy ending. And that's just an ideal watch for a Christmas morning. And the last movie is here, last on the list, because it's perhaps the least Christmassy of all, and that movie is Mean Girls. And it's not because of the Jingle Bells scene. Like maybe a little bit because of that, but not entirely. Mean Girls is once again that nostalgic type of movie that is just such a classic that it deserves a rewatch every Christmas. But like the other movies make me feel like a kid, this one actually makes me feel like a teenager again, which I'm not sure is always the best because it provokes some unwanted feelings as well. But when you spend your entire Christmas feeling like a kid, it's nice to feel like a teenager before you have to go back to being an adult again, I guess. But it's more than just nostalgia. There's something about Mean Girls that fits very well with the chaotic atmosphere of Christmas, like, the drama, the heightened emotions. It's the same in the movie, and it's the same when I turn off the movie and go do something with my family and everyone is like just emotionally on edge for some reason. Christmas isn't really the theme, but the vibe fits. It's cozy, it's familiar, and it's way better than any movie that tries way too hard to be festive. So yeah, Mean Girls may not be like a traditional Christmas movie. It's actually very far from it, but because it's such a classic, it just earns its spot on my Christmas watch list. And those are all the movies that I would rather watch than Home Alone or Elf. Well, there are probably a lot more movies that I would rather watch than Home Alone, but here are all the Christmas movies that I would rather watch than Home Alone. Anyway, let me know what you are watching during this holiday season, and obviously Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.